morning. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I want to ask about you show.
All right, tell me when you're ready, Dave.
I'm almost done. I'm on the last page, Judge. Then
Okay.
I'll email it to you.
Sounds good.
Then I 6 months. Got a job. And I just, pay for my fines and stuff. No, ma'am. I ain't no road. Yes, ma'am.
Judge, did you have much time to spare between the last hearing and this one?
Oh, not really. Maybe 5
neither.
minutes. Yeah.
I don't have no problem, I just now like done this job. And I was leaning towards special arrangements to make payments, but I just got the job. And here, I've been in here, I think like 3 or 4 days now. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you. Okay, how much will it take? Okay, so if I pay.
Sorry, Judge. I'm having trouble finding where it saved it to. I apologize.
That's all right. If you're scanning it into PDF, chances are it went into your pictures file.
Okay, Judge. I'll look there.
So I just gotta go to the people, get in touch with the people. Okay. You talk to them about it. Okay, yes, ma'am. Y'all been released today? Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Okay, so I'm done with this next year. Done with this, so I'm trying to do this out tonight. Okay, thank you, God bless. Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir. I'm trying my best, guys. I don't want to go back to prison.
There you go. I'm resaving it, Judge, so I'm almost done.
Okay.
Okay. Uh-huh. Okay, thank you.
Judge, we have Mr. Kate here if you want to talk to him. How you doing, Mr. Martinez? just held me up for, I'm able to get my license back, I just not. I haven't been able to get out and get it back.
I've emailed that to you, Your Honor, and Ms. Kebido.
All right. Let's see. See how fast our mail servers are.
Yeah, I still got one more. I'll let you one more. Is that 11 o'clock too, or is it 11:30?
Not very fast, apparently.
Nope.
No,
It's probably us.
I'll double
There,
check.
I just got it.
Okay.
All right.
I did too.
Okay, let me look at it real quick. Failed to load. Reload.
Oh, no. I'll try again. Sorry about the
No,
technical.
no, hold on. It made,
Mine says there was an error opening the document. The file is damaged and could not be repaired.
Dang.
I'm technologically inept, so I
all
apologize.
right. Here's what let me see. Yeah, mine won't load either. So tell me this, what's the plea agreement?
I'll read it from the plea agreement. It's defendant will plead guilty to count 2. That charge is eluding a police officer, a level 9 person felony. All other counts dismissed. The state will request the standard box number in the box the defendant falls in and will stand silent on probation versus prison. Restitution to be determined by the court on all counts, including dismissed counts.
Okay. And as a severity level 9, do you guys have an idea what his criminal history is?
We do, Your Honor.
And
Your Honor, we think that he's either a C or an F. I received an email from Ms. Kebido saying that. I would note to the court that there are a couple convictions in Missouri that conceivably could be charged as persons. I don't think they will, but if they were, I've informed him that worst case scenario, he could come back a B.
could come back a B? Okay.
Yes.
But
If
you all,
counts those.
from what you expect, he looks like he would be presumptive probation. It was,
Judge.
is there going to be a special rule?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
Not on the
Okay.
eluding charge.
Okay. All right. So we will go. All right. Then let's be on the record in case number 2018CR1259, captioned State of Kansas versus James Haley. Would the parties announce their appearances, please?
May it please the court, the state appears by Assistant District Attorney Claire Kibido.
May it please the court, defendant appears from the Wyandotte County Jail with counsel David Matthews.
All right. We are here set down for a plea hearing. We are appearing all by Zoom video conference. And Mr. Haley, my understanding is that you've talked to Mr. Matthews about this and that you're okay with proceeding by video conference. You would waive your personal appearance in court. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, as I told you before we went on the record, I need to ask you some questions prior to taking up your plea. And to do that, I need to have you sworn in. 1 second, though, before we do that, I would ask both counsel, was there a prelim or a waiver of prelim yet?
There has not been yet, Judge.
Okay.
We'd waive.
So, Mr. Haley, why I ask you that is you have a separate right to what's called a preliminary hearing. At that hearing, the state would have to put on enough evidence for me to find probable cause that a crime is committed and that you committed that crime. Now, if you want to go forward with this plea, you could understand why it really isn't necessary to have that kind of hearing. However, you do have a right to that. And if for some reason in the middle of this plea, it all fell apart, if you've already waived your preliminary hearing, that waiver will still stay in place even if that plea doesn't go through today. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you want to waive your preliminary hearing today?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Thibodeau, on behalf of the state.
We waive as well, Your Honor.
All right. I'll find that both parties have waived preliminary hearing. Find there is probable cause to support the charges that they were committed, that the defendant committed those. Bind him over for trial. I assume, Mr. Matthews, you waive formal reading.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. He'll be arraigned. I'll enter a plea of not guilty on his behalf until we get through with the rest of this hearing. All right. With that, Mr. Haley, if you'd raise your right hand, my court reporter will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Haley, how much formal education have you had?
I have my GD.
All right. You read and write okay?
Yeah.
As you sit here today, I know you're in custody, but are you under the influence of any alcohol or drugs or prescription medicine that might cloud your thinking today?
No, sir.
You feel like your mind's clear, you understand what's going on?
Yes, sir.
All right. You know that you don't have to change your plea to guilty. If you wanted to maintain your not guilty plea, you have a right to do that and to have a trial by jury. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand the charges that you currently face?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, you know that if you decided to have a trial on that matter, that the state would have to put on enough evidence to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You wouldn't have to prove anything yourself. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. At that trial, Mr. Matthews, as your attorney, would have a right to cross-examine, confront all the witnesses against you. He could call any witnesses that you wanted to come to court, and if they didn't want to come to court, he could use subpoena power to make them. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you wanted to, you would have an absolute right to testify, but you would also have a right not to testify. And if you decided not to testify, that couldn't be used against you. In other words, Ms. Thibodeau here couldn't get up and argue to the jury, well, ladies and gentlemen, he must be guilty because he didn't get up and tell his side. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
If we had that trial and you were convicted, you would have a right to appeal that conviction to an appellate court. If you didn't have the money to do that appeal, a lawyer would be appointed to do it for you. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, if you change your plea today to one of guilty, you understand that you're going to be giving up all of those rights that I just talked about. There's not going to be any kind of trial in this case. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
You have any questions about those, any of those rights that I just went over with you?
No, sir.
All right. And is it your intent to change your plea today from one of not guilty to guilty?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, Mr. Matthews told me before we went on the record here that the plea agreement is that you're going to be pleading guilty to count 2, which is the fleeing and eluding a police officer, that's a severity level 9 person felony, that they're going to dismiss all the other charges. The state will be asking for the standard sentence and stand silent on your request for probation. That you would agree to pay restitution on all the charges, even the ones that are dismissed, as determined by the court, and that's the full agreement. Is that your understanding of the full agreement?
Yes.
Has anybody promised you anything other than that to get you to plead guilty today?
No, sir.
Has anybody placed any force or threats against you to get you to plead guilty today?
No, sir.
All right. Now, there's some agreements there about recommendations for sentencing. And I'm going to listen very closely when it comes time for sentencing to those recommendations. But you understand the court's not bound by them, and I can give you any sentence that's allowed under the law. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we talked a little bit earlier about what they think that your criminal history could be. The very worst case scenario in the lawyer's opinion is that you could be a B, but they expect you to fall somewhere between the C and F category. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, for today's purposes, I don't know anything about your criminal history, and I won't until there's a pre-sentence investigation. So what I have to do is assume you have the very worst criminal history possible so that I can advise you what the most anybody can get for this crime is. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the most that anybody could get, if you had the very worst criminal history, would be 17 months in prison, and a fine of up to $100,000. That would also have 12 months of post-release supervision. Do you understand that's the maximum penalty for this charge?
Yes, I do.
All right. Mr. Matthews has been your attorney for a while now. Are you satisfied with his advice and counsel?
Yes, I am.
All right. Mr. Matthews, do you know any reason why your client should not plead today?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So before I get to that Mr. Matthews tried to send us all this plea petition, wasn't able to today. Did you have an opportunity to go over that whole document with him?
Yes, I did.
And you'd agree with me that it basically goes over the rights that you and I just talked about and also explains that plea agreement and the maximum sentences. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I haven't seen it yet, but did you sign that document after you went over it with Mr. Matthews?
Yes, I did.
All
Your
right.
Honor,
Yes.
I would just note to the court, I did resend again, so I don't know if that second time would work, but I just sent it a minute ago.
Let me check and see. We'll give it a try. Okay. There's a letter
Is that not it?
from Stan Haslett.
No, that's not it. Sorry, Judge.
I will delete that email, Dave.
Please.
All right.
Thank
So Mr. Haley and Mr. Matthews, you went over that plea agreement, that plea petition with your client.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Thibodeau, you haven't seen it yet?
No, Your Honor, but when Mr. Matthews read the plea agreement, that's what I had offered to his client.
Okay. All right. So, all right. That should cover that. All right. So given all of that, Mr. Haley, before I ask you the ultimate question, how you plead, do you have any questions for me or Mr. Matthews about anything we went over today?
Not that we've gone over so far, no.
Okay. As to count 2 of the original information, which charges you with eluding a police officer, severity level 9, person felony, how do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
All right. Now I'm going to ask Ms. Thibodeau to tell me what she believes the evidence would be if we had a trial in this case. I want you to listen closely because when she's done, I'm going to ask you if that's what happened. Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Thibodeau.
Judge, on October the 12th of 2018, officers from the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department were dispatched on a stolen vehicle report. That stolen vehicle was a 2005 white F Ford 250. And on October the 12th of 2018, officers from the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department were dispatched to 42nd Street and Kansas Avenue in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, where they saw a white in color Ford vehicle. They observed a male that was later identified as the defendant, James Haley, get into that car. It did not have a license plate on it. The officers tried to pull over that vehicle driven by the defendant, James Haley. They were in a properly marked police vehicle with their emergency lights and sirens, and the Mr. Haley failed to yield to their emergency equipment, and they did a vehicle pursuit. The defendant committed multiple moving violations, including speeding, a 78 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone, improper notice of intent to turn 9 times, passing on the right, driving over the median, speeding 78 in a 45, and a U-turn over the median. That pursuit was terminated, and then later the officers involved in the pursuit identified the person that they pursued as the defendant, James Haley.
All right. Mr. Haley, did you hear what Ms. Thibodeau had to say?
Yes, I did.
Is that what happened in this case?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I find the defendant has freely, knowingly, and voluntarily waived his constitutional rights and entered his plea. There is a factual basis for the plea. he understands the nature of the charge and consequences of the plea, and I'll make a finding that he is in fact guilty of count 2, fleeing and eluding police officer, severity level 9, person felony. Pursuant to the plea, all other charges in the case are dismissed. Sentencing will be deferred pending a pre-sentence investigation report. We'll get a new date here in a second. Mr. Matthews, do you have, I've sent you, I think in the past, a blank PSI request form.
Yes, Judge.
All right, if you could get that filled out and sent to me, let's see, Ryan Duckers
Yes, Judge.
at probation, then we'll get that going. I'll pick a sentencing date here in a while. Mr. Haley, as a convicted felon, it's prohibited for you to own or possess a firearm and certain kind of deadly cutting instruments like dirks, daggers, switchblades, basically any knives that could be considered deadly weapons. Mr. Matthews can tell you more about that if you're interested. The point being, before you decide to arm yourself with any weapon like that or own or possess one, make sure you talk to a good lawyer like Mr. Matthews to make sure that it wouldn't be reason to revoke a probation or add new charges, okay?
Okay, sir.
This is not a registration offense, so we don't have to do anything with that. Before I pick a date, anything else for our record today?
Your Honor, my client wanted to address bond.
All right. Go right ahead.
Your Honor, my client's requesting an OR bond. There's several reasons for that. One of them, as the court notes, that both parties believe that he will be presumptive probation. So the defendant would ask the court to consider releasing him on an OR bond, or if the court's not inclined, to a pretrial conference bond. He does indicate to me that he would have a stable place to stay. I would argue that he's not a flight risk and ask that the court grant him an OR or pretrial.
Ms.
And,
Thibodeau.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, and I've been in custody for the last 2 years. I've had a lot of time to think about, my situation and the path I was going down in my life. And I have a good opportunity with the Missouri DOC that I just got out of to go to this halfway house where they can transport me to work and whatnot and get a good job going. So if you could give me a chance, I would appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Thibodeau.
Judge, I would defer to the court, but just ask you to remind the defendant that if he does fail to appear for his sentencing, the state is not bound by our plea agreement.
Right. All right. I'm gonna OR him. I would consider some sort of pretrial services, but it sounds like he's going to be under supervision under Missouri DOC anyway. So I don't think we need to double supervise him. So I'm just going to grant him an OR. And let me pull up my calendar here really quick, and I'm going to get you all a date for sentencing. All right. All right. Looking at my calendar in late July. And sentencing there. Sentencing. It looks like I don't think that's far enough out for a PSI. Let's go to August. I don't have anything set August 14th yet. I could do 9 o'clock in the morning. Ms. Thibodeau?
That works for me, Your Honor.
Ian, Mr. Matthews?
That's fine, Judge.
All right. 8/14/20 at 9 a.m. for sentencing in Division 8. If you all want to do Zoom, then I prefer it. But if you want to be in person, we can do that as well. Now, do you know, Mr. Haley, you're going to be getting out, I assume, today. Do you know where you'll be staying?
I'm going to stay with my mother in Wyandotte just until they can approve me for the halfway house that I'm supposed to go to in Missouri. Because I lost my place at the halfway house when I came to this jail as my detainer. But they said that they could get me a spot back. It takes a couple days. And for that meantime, I'm going to stay in Wyandotte with my mother.
All right. when we're done here, I'm gonna send you and Mr. Matthews to a breakout room so
Okay.
that he can get the information, unless you have that information, Dave, for the PSI request.
No, Judge, I'll need to meet with him in a breakout room.
Okay, so I'm gonna send you to that breakout room so you can give him that information. You need to make sure that whatever you give him is a way that probation can get a hold of you. Because in the next week or so, they're gonna be reaching out to set up your pre-sentence investigation, okay?
Okay, sir.
And you understand your next court date is August 14th at 9 a.m. As Ms. Thibodeau said, failure to appear at a sentencing would give them the right to seek a different sentence than they agreed to today. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anything else for our record, people?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right. I am going to send Mr. Matthews and his client to a breakout room. Let's see. Sorry. Open all rooms. Assign.
Go ahead.
Whoops.
Hey,
Whoops. I
Judge, you-
tried to send everybody.
You invited me to the breakout room.
Me too. How much
Alright.
of a breakout?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to close that again. And
You
then
can make Dave the host.
that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave and make Dave the host.
And I'm gonna
Um,
leave also so that it's just Dave and his client.
And I'm
So it's
gonna
just
leave
you
also.
guys talking, and then
But-
you just close it down when you're done.
Judge, make sure you turn YouTube off.
I will. I
Okay.
will do that right now.
All
all
right.
right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Whoops. I got to do that before I think I assign.